Our first reading tonight is from Exodus chapter 12, verses 1 through 14. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, "This month shall mark for you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year for you. Tell the whole congregation of Israel that on the 10th of this month they are to take a lamb for each family, a lamb for each household. If a household is too small for a whole lamb, it shall join its closest neighbor in obtaining one. The lamb shall be divided in proportion to the number of people who eat of it. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a year-old male. You shall take it from the sheep or from the goats. You shall keep it until the 14th day of this month. Then the whole assembly congregation of Israel shall slaughter it at twilight. They shall take some of the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and the lintel of the houses in which they eat it. They shall eat the lamb that same night. They shall eat it roasted over the fire with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Do not eat any of it raw or boiled in water, but roast it over the fire with its head, legs, and inner organs. You shall let none of it remain until morning. Anything that remains until the morning you shall burn. This is how you shall eat it: your loins girded, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it hurriedly. It is the Passover of the Lord. For I will pass through the land of Egypt that night, and I will strike down every firstborn in the land of Egypt, both human beings and animals. On all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am the Lord. The blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you live. When I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague shall destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. This day shall be a day of remembrance for you. You shall celebrate it as a festival to the Lord. Throughout your generations, you shall observe it as a perpetual ordinance." The psalm to read responsibly tonight is 116, verses 1 to 2 and 12 to 19. I love the Lord who has heard my voice and listened to my supplication. For the Lord has given ear to me wherever I called. How shall I repay the Lord for all the good things God has done for me? I will lift the cup of salvation and call on the name of the Lord. I will fulfill my vows to the Lord in the presence of all God's people. Precious in your sight, O Lord, is the death of your servants. O Lord, truly I am your servant. I am your servant, the child of your handmaid. You have freed me from my bonds. I will offer you the sacrifice of thanksgiving and call upon the name of the Lord. I will fulfill my vows to the Lord in the presence of all of God's people. In the courts of the Lord's house, in the midst of you, O Jerusalem. Our second lesson is in 1 Corinthians 11:23 to 26. For I received from the Lord what I also handed on to you, that the Lord Jesus, on the night when he was betrayed, took a loaf of bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, "This is my body that is for you. Do this in remembrance of me." In the same way he took the cup also after supper, saying, "This cup is a new covenant in my blood. Do this as often as you drink it in remembrance of me. For as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes."
gospel reading this evening is John chapter 13, verses 1 through 17 and 31b through 35. Glory to you, O Lord. Now, before the festival of the Passover, Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The devil had already put it into the heart of Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray him. And during supper, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going to God, got up from the table, took off his outer robe, and tied a towel around himself. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel that was tied around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus answered, "You do not know now what I am doing, but later you will understand." Peter said to him, "You will never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no share with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head." Jesus said to him, "One who has bathed does not need to wash except for the feet, but is entirely clean. And you are clean, though not all of you." For he knew who was to betray him. For this reason he said, "Not all of you are clean." After he had washed their feet, he put on his robe and had returned to the table. He said to them, "Do you know what I have done for you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for that is what I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example, that you also should do as I have done to you. Very truly I tell you, servants are not greater than their master, nor are messengers greater than the one who sent them. If you know these things, you are blessed if you do them. Now the Son of Man has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him. If God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and will glorify him at once. Little children, I am with you only a little longer. You will look for me. And as I said to the Jews, so now I say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also should love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." The gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. You may be seated. Good evening. A couple years ago, I went to the wedding of a couple of my friends. They're both teachers, and they had this nice outdoor wedding at a golf course. I was maybe a little mean at the wedding. See, what happened was the officiant at the end of the wedding said this thing about it was a list, because they're both teachers, so she wanted to make it special for them being teachers. So she read off this list of 10 things that are true about teachers that are really going to make this marriage work. And one of them was, teachers really know how to love. And I thought, well, that's silly. A lot of people know how to love. And so, as we stood up and people were walking out, I was kind of joking about it. Not so loud that the couple or the officiant would hear it, but the people in the row around me heard it. As I was saying, because to be clear, I was a teacher before I started this. I have the credentials. And so I joked, back when I was in college, my second year of teacher school, we had to take Love 101, the basics of how to love. And, I saw some other majors in that class. But then the next semester, we took Love 102, how to really love. And I didn't see anyone else but teachers in that class. So that's how you know only teachers really know how to love. It's kind of silly. But then again, I was not being very loving for making fun of what the officiant said at the wedding, I'll admit. Ironically, I did go to teacher school. Maybe I forgot how to love when I went to seminary? On Sunday, Palm Sunday, we talked about who we put our faith in. And we talked about how we put our faith in Jesus, not in the powers of the world. It's not the serious and the strong that we put our trust in, but it's the guy who rode into town on a donkey with a parade of palm branches instead of swords. A mockery of the Roman symbols of power, seriousness, and strength. Maybe we could say something similar about love. The world teaches us a way to love, or perhaps many ways to love, and I actually don't think any of us are very good at it, at least not all the time. We all make mistakes in how we love one another. And if there's one teacher who is going to understand it, I think it's Jesus, who in this story, in this gospel lesson, refers to himself as a teacher. So maybe that officiant at that wedding was right after all, but she was just talking about this one teacher in particular. If anyone knows how to love, it's Jesus. The kind of love that humbles itself to wash the feet of your subordinates. The kind of love that is willing to die for people. Now, we might say we know how to love. We don't need lessons in how to love. But I beg to differ. I think there's lots of ways we love wrong. Perhaps the first way is the absolute laissez-faire love, the deism love, the hands-off parenting kind of love, hey, you're perfect just the way you are. You do your thing. I'm going to do my thing. I don't want to interfere. If you want to stand in the middle of a street as a bus is coming, I wouldn't want to interfere with the choice that you have made for your own life. I want to support you in your dreams. Go stand in front of that bus. Obviously, that's wrong. It's a sort of love that never rebukes, that never critiques, that never pushes back, that never says, hey, couldn't you do this a little better? And certainly none of us are actually letting people go stand in front of buses. But I'm sure at least some of us, at least sometimes, do the very hands-off love. Yeah, sure, I love you, but do your own thing. And then there's perhaps the exact opposite, the tough love kind of love, the love that really focuses on the critique and the rebuke and the correction. The love that is most obviously conditional, that says, hey, I love you, but you need to work on some things, right? The love that says, hey, I understand you're going through a hard time, and your life is crazy, but listen, you're slipping here. You're out of control, and it's going to start hurting yourself and other people with this behavior. So I really need you to get it back on track. And what I need you to do is wash your dishes. Your sink is full. This is how you get ants in your kitchen. Wash your dishes, or I'm not going to love you anymore. Now, I'm kidding a little bit, but I suspect we've known someone in our lives who treats us a little bit like that. But sometimes Christians treat people like this. The church treats people like this. We all treat people like this. We've often heard, love the sinner, hate the sin, and sometimes that is wisdom. But sometimes how that comes across is actually quite hypocritical. It's, hey, I love you, but you're not going to feel that I love you until you change everything about your personality and lifestyle. Then I will act like I love you. For now, just believe that I love you when I want nothing to have nothing to do with you. Trust me. Somehow, this is love. It's just tough love. That's not good love either. And maybe at this point you're thinking, well, I'm not laissez-faire love and I'm not tough love. I actually help people. But there's another way that we get this wrong. And that is the sort of ivory tower liberal sensibilities love, yeah, I will give you stuff. Sure, I do love the homeless. I will send money to homeless ministries, and I will donate my old clothes by giving them to people who will take them to a place where homeless people can come in. I just don't want to see them myself. You know, I don't want them to touch me. I'm sure there's good homeless people, but I'm afraid that some of them might, I don't know, well, they smell bad, right? I don't want them anywhere near me. I love them at arm's length or greater. Sometimes this love actually does manifest in a very personal way. That is the sort of love that gives gifts but is never in any way emotionally available or intimate or vulnerable. The sort of love that says, hey, I'll take care of you, but don't cry at me. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with your problems unless it means I throw money at your problems. I can throw money at your problems, but I can't talk to you about it. That's too much. Now, I'm sure we could spend all night talking about all the ways we don't love well. But I suspect just within those three examples, we could all name at least one of those where we've made that mistake. Where we've been too tough, too hands-off, too engaged in giving stuff instead of actual meaningful love, covering up what a person actually needs by giving them what we want them to need. I'm sure we're all guilty of at least one of these three examples. And I'm sure we've all been on the receiving end of at least one of these three examples. Whether it's a family member, or a friend, or a teacher, or a boss, or someone at church. And I want to say, all of these failures of love are still meaningful in some way or another. God's Spirit still works in all of these. If I were a homeless person and someone said, hey, I don't want to be anywhere near you, but I'm going to give you $1,000, how does that sound? I'd say, well, I'm a little hurt that you don't want to be near me, but you have substantially improved my condition, so thanks. That's something. Even when we fail to love, God makes something of it. But the world would tell us that all of these kinds of love are exactly right. Sometimes the world invades the church so much that the church tells us that these failures of love are exactly right. This is exactly what we need to do. This is how we need to parent. This is how we need to take care of other people. This is all we need to do. But I don't really want to root my understanding of love in what the world says or what the church says, unless the church is rooted in what Jesus does. In washing his disciples' feet, Jesus corrects all three of these failures of love. It's not laissez-faire. It's not hands-off. He's not saying, you're all fine the way you are. He's saying, you are not clean perfectly, but I'm going to clean you. I'm going to take care of you. You're not perfect the way you are. I'm going to help. It's also not a terribly tough love. He doesn't say, wash your own feet and then we'll talk. He says, I'll take this on myself. You're not perfect. You're never going to be perfect. You don't need to be perfect for me to love you. I'm going to love you through it. And it's not the ivory tower love. He's not shooting them with an intercontinental ballistic squirt gun from half a continent away. He is touching their feet, no matter how smelly and gross and whatever else those feet may be. He is touching them because there's nowhere that Jesus won't go with us. The way that Jesus loves is not as the world loves. It is something better, something bigger, something closer. Something that's vulnerable. It's something that doesn't hide behind artificial walls of rules that we read in books or see on the internet. It's a love that's real and personal and pure. And true, we will never attain it ourselves. Jesus is the hero of this story, not us. But this is the love that we're rooted in. And this is the love that we try against all other loves to see if they work. And if they're not this, then they're not the love that will last forever. Because someday, when everything comes to its end and the universe is shaken from the foundations of the earth to the heights of heaven, a lot of things will change, but love will remain. And the love that remains won't be some artificially constructed, pre-processed, packaged in plastic kind of love. It'll be the love that Jesus shows here. And the love that is our commission, our mandate, our command to carry on. This is what we remember tonight. On Palm Sunday, we remembered that it's not the serious and strong that we put our faith in, but it's Jesus with his comical march into Jerusalem, mocking the powers of Rome. And today we remember it's not the world that we learn love from. It's Christ and Christ alone. And when we find ourselves rooted in that love, that is God's kingdom come.